Can you talk about some of the institutions that have been created by Latin American leaders? There's the Bank of the South, the ALBA, UNASUR, and Telesur. And can you talk about its significance in trying to counter U.S. imperial control over the region, i.e. The IMF and the World Bank?
Well, the IMF is interesting. They've been thrown out. Practically every country now has thrown out the IMF. In Argentina, they were helped by Venezuela, which brought up a lot of the debt. And Brazil, they just brought it up themselves and threw them out. I don't even know if they're anywhere left in Latin America. And they had a stranglehold on the continent. So to break that stranglehold, Latin America, South America simply extricated itself from IMF control. Actually, the IMF was in trouble. They started running out of funds because they get funded by the payment for of debt and so on and so forth. The UNASUR it's met several times and done interesting things. One was the case we mentioned. There's another one which is in a way more important. It was in Bolivia. Shortly after the Morales victory, there was real democratic triumph in Bolivia. The indigenous population, which is the majority and the most repressed population in the hemisphere, they entered the political arena. They elected someone from their own ranks. It's real democracy, not some rich guy. They elected a poor peasant on serious issues, resource control, cultural issues in a multicultural society, and so on. Well, traditionally, like every other country, Bolivia was run by a tiny, basically white elite, very rich elite, in eastern Bolivia. And that happens to be where the main resources are located. So they immediately began a secessionist movement, which of course was supported by the United States. And they were moving towards secession. It was also pretty violent. It killed a couple dozen peasants and so on. After the uprising and the killing of the peasants, UNASUR had a meeting in Chile, and they strongly supported the government. Came out with a strong declaration opposing the secessionist movement. That was significant. It's not the only reason it was put down, but it undermined it. And for Latin American unity, that's pretty amazing. That never happened before. And the U.S. had to step back. There was another organization formed, I think February 2010. It hasn't done anything yet, but it's a union of every country in the hemisphere apart from the United States and Canada. Now that's pretty significant. If that actually functions, it's more than symbolically taking control out of the hands of the ones who've been running the hemisphere for over a century. Well, these are all important moves. I mean, the Bank of the South, it hasn't really taken off yet, but if it did, it would be significant. Telesur is quite interesting. That's based in Venezuela. It would be an independent television system. This goes back a ways, back in the period of decolonization, 50s and 60s. The newly liberated colonies wanted to have some kind of share in the international information system. They're totally blocked out. It's all imperial control. So they proposed in the 70s a new international information order in which there would be some opportunity for third world countries, ex-colonies, to participate. That led to total fury here. I mean, the press associations, the media, the government, everyone bitterly denounced it as an effort to destroy freedom. There were all kind of lies, hysterical lying. There's a good study of it by University Press. It's worth reading. I think it's called Hope and Folly. Incredible lying. They practically put UNESCO out of business because it was trying to open up something. In fact, the U.S. stopped paying its dues for years until UNESCO sort of followed its orders. But this was because the Third World was trying to enter somehow into the information system. And that's dangerous too. You get independent voices, you can't control things so easily. Well, they beat back that one. But Telesur is a case where it's not being beaten back, and it's not the only one. Much more striking one is Al Jazeera. It's interesting to watch the reaction to that. Al Jazeera is highly professional. It's good as any. It's like the BBC World Service, at least. It gives the only major reporting from the most strife-torn regions of the world, like during the Israeli attack on Gaza, actually U.S.-Israeli attack on Gaza. Al Jazeera was broadcasting 24 hours a day from the scene of the attack. Nobody else was reporting. During these recent uprisings, Al Jazeera has been way ahead of anyone else. They're all over the place, good reporting. You can't shut it down. But in the United States, it's essentially shut down. I think there are only 2 towns in the United States where you can get it on cable television, which means if you have access to the internet, you can get it, but that doesn't reach the population. So it's essentially cut out. There's real, in fact, the Emir of Qatar, it's supported by Qatar, the Emir of Qatar. It was kind of an amusing incident, which he came to the United States a couple of years ago, and he was lectured by Colin Powell, the dove in the Bush administration, trying to get him to shut down Al Jazeera. And he called a press conference where the press came, and he, I suppose tongue-in-cheek, lectured the American press on freedom of the press. It's kind of embarrassing while they're reporting, but it was funny.